difficult thing for us to wrestle with in today's society is the idea of that being cool and being biblically accurate is usually a choice you have to make. And we don't want to make that choice. Simply, part of it is simply that we thrive on these platforms like TikTok, like Snapchat, like Instagram, where being cool, being socially accepted and things like it kind of thrives on people being into you, interested, building your audience that way. But simply the things that draw people's attention on these platforms, it preys upon sexual lust and the desire for material things and the drive to consume, treating other people like objects to be attained, or like and like that this sort of behavior, which is dangerous to your spirit and to your soul. And so as society has embraced these things, they're like that it's normal now. The internet, to just you could spend your whole day just on the internet interacting with just complete strangers and call that normal now. That's weird. Like that is so strange from a spiritual basis, essentially speaking. And of course now, I mean, because this is normative, usual, common, churches are having to adapt. And over the last probably 10, 15 years, they've been adapting to integrate more online. And with the lockdown and stuff, it kind of forced a lot of organizations, churches, nonprofits to embrace things a little bit more quickly than maybe they otherwise would have done. And so now they're live streaming their services, and so they've bought the licenses and whatever, and they've realized that apparently you don't get a lot of traffic online unless you acknowledge them. So you have to do the weird PR thing of like, thanks for tuning in. And there are some organizations that are even pivoting to where our Sunday morning service or whatever, it is primarily just to serve as like a live audience for a broadcast, the way like a late night TV show even is kind of framed. And it's produced this weird situation for us to live in, where now pastors have been chosen on the basis, quite frankly, if people are most honest, of how cool they are, how interesting, if they have the look and they have the voice, they have the charisma, they have that thing that will draw in crowds and that people will be invested and interested in them. And it's clearly had a dangerous, toxic effect on those congregations and on the church as a whole. Because as much as pastors, if you put them on the spot and say, are you competing with the church down the street? They would say no. But in their heart, yeah, they are. That church, like, you can totally be absolutely affectionate towards, great relationship with pastor down the street with me, meet with them on a regular basis or whatever, but at anytime you had a conference or whatever, the numbers that come up are butts and seats, dollars in the budget, size of your building. And so the next church that's down the road that is larger than yours, people are like, well, like, are constantly trying to maneuver towards becoming like that, to replicating what they've done. And if their thing is online, or if their thing is having a drummer on the rock band, or having whatever the thing is, having a pastor with skinny jeans, V-neck t-shirts, whatever the thing is, like, we need to get somebody that's like that, that's younger and cooler and sexier, so that we can draw more people in, because the idea is we need more people, and you'll add in that little so that they can hear the gospel. But is that what's happening? Once they're in the seat, see, when you drive on spectacle, which, I mean, keep in mind, that's how record labels have chosen rock stars and rappers and whatever and pop stars for decades, right? Somebody auditions at American Idol, America's Got Talent, or you just go around nightclubs and sit in and be like, they've got something. And then you bring them in, their look, you kind of put some makeup on them or whatever it is, pair them up with a new second voice or whatever to be able to kind of round out their sound, and then make some money off them really quickly, and that's it. So, of course, as long as they're popular in their little niche, you'll thrive on them. But as soon as kind of the market moves away from them, you just kind of drop them. So the primary goal of the Hollywood actress or the Radio City talent is you have to stay famous. You have to stay popular so that people will stay interested in you by whatever means necessary. If that means a meat dress, if that means kissing someone of the same gender on stage, if that means saying thank Jesus at your awards ceremony, if that means whatever, like having a beef with Taylor Swift, dating this person, or sleeping with that one, or like whatever the thing is required. Stay famous. As long as you stay interesting and stay famous, people will buy your tickets, they'll buy your albums, they will buy your merchandise, and you'll keep bringing in the money for the people that really matter, the ones that are holding your leash. And that's what we've moved pastors into, a niche where they have to do whatever it takes. So you end up that in Times Square, there's a, which I know you've heard of, there's a church called Hillsong, and I'm sure you've heard of it as well. And they have had a pastor named Carl Lentz for a while now. He was just caught in a sexual affair and has been removed. This be a scandal. See, which of course, like staying famous by whatever means necessary stops hard at the point where scandal is invoked, right? So the thing is, when you're like, the thing that he was known for prior to this, before he was known, obviously being the Hillsong pastor in Times Square, New York, the thing he was known for is that he was constantly rubbing shoulders with supermodels, Justin Bieber, professional athletes. Like you would, like if you were subscribed to his Instagram or his Snapchat or whatever, you would have seen long lists of him holding drinks with alongside anybody and everybody. And that was his thing, of that because he's famous people go to that church that he's pastoring, that it drew a crowd. And the thing about drawing a crowd, when you're thriving on spectacle, you have to keep spectacle. And that is a slippery, dangerous slope. Whereas on the opposite side, you've got somebody like a John MacArthur, who's been the pastor of Grace Community Church for decades in LA. And he stands up with a suit, with a giant pulpit, and he stands up there and he just preaches. See, it used to be that the primary grading metric of a preacher, of a pastor, was longevity. How long have you stayed in ministry in this place? Because simply, when you have to not just get people married, but also you're burying them too, it changes the way you speak to them. When you've cried alongside of them, when you've seen not just them, but their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children coming to faith and baptizing them. Like when you've been in generations of ministry that way, it changes the things that matter. It doesn't matter if you're cool anymore. What matters is, are you available? And simply, most of the time, cool and available is the major choice that's changed. Because simply, when you think about it, if you are following a channel that's got 150,000, which is a small number on social media, 150,000 other followers, if you were to message that person, you think they're going to get back to you right away? Even if you've met them in person, you think they're coming back to you? What about someone who's got 1 million followers? You DM them, honestly, at 10 million, their DMs are off. You can't even do it. Even if they are a pastor or somebody like that that has 1 million followers or something on Instagram, you direct message them, they're not coming back to you. You could say, hey, I'm thinking about killing myself, which obviously is not a rare message that's thrown around on the internet. I'm thinking about killing myself, please talk me out of it. Are they ever going to get back to you? 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 10 days later, they might come across it. Because think about the amount of notifications they just get. Joe Rogan has a hilarious stand-up bit where the number of Richard pics that this one woman gets on Instagram, that her phone is probably physically lighter if she was to delete them all. Do you think that in that crowd of people trying to get that person's attention, do you think that your little drop is going to upset anything? No. Simply, you cannot pastor effectively, which literally means shepherd. You cannot shepherd effectively that way. And so we need to retool the model in which how we choose ministry leaders away from sexy and cool, because simply there's nothing sustainable there. And we need to bring it back into available, spiritually reliable, and grounded in right doctrine.